Good afternoon, Pathfinders.
Good
I
afternoon.
hope you all are keeping well. It's been long hours for many who sat here for a few hours on the honors. But it's a quite interesting honor this afternoon. We're going to go through the crisis intervention. I think many of us started the year 2020 with a joyful occasion, wishing everybody a happy new year. But it didn't go very well, isn't it? Just down the line, 2 months, in the middle of a third month in UK, we went on a lockdown. We went on a big crisis. So something that made me to think and looking through the honors, I think I felt a bit challenging honor to do it via e-honor, but it's interesting to do it and so that we understand our responsibility in this difficult time. So myself, I'm an elder in one of the elders in Sutton Coldfield Church. I'm a Pathfinder director as well in Sutton Coldfield Church. I also work in NHS. That's about my background. So in regards to learning objective, as a presenter, I will be going through how to identify a crisis and a need. And we go through the Bible and we go through a few verses in the Bible and we do that. Similar way, you'll also will be given a requirement for you to identify a crisis and also the need through the scriptures, which I will also provide you the scriptures. And some of the common problems that the teens face in 2020 and some of the common problems the families face in 2020 and what is the motive that you and me have to do these and to understand what is the human needs are. And also I will go through with you the 6-step model of crisis intervention and then 10 steps of effective listening. And I'll also go through with you how to make a professional referral. During my presentation, you'll also see 3 videos will be present, one from the general conference, and then one video about active listening, and the third video about how to make a professional referral. And I'm sure that those will build up to complete your requirements, which will be describing in your worksheet. And I'm sure the worksheet will be sent to you via link or is available on the website. I'm sure you should be able to complete them, submit through your directors. I'm sure you should be able to sign off to get this particular honor. There's an interesting element where you'll also will be able to do a 10-minute interview, and I'll just go through that with you later and how to do them. Before we go further into our real nitty-gritty of the crisis itself, to understand it better, what is the definition of a crisis? So looking through some dictionaries, I put this together so that we could understand it a bit better. It reads as a crucial stage, a sudden change or a turning point in the course of something. So if you are driving on a road, a tar road or tarmac, where you are driving and suddenly you happen to see the tarmac road stops and you see completely change where your car is not ready for it. So things like that, a sudden change. Maybe you are on a particular theme where you're driving through and your sequence is so good and you have no problem and there's no fault at all. Suddenly you find something has happened. You end up in crisis. That's what it means, the sudden change or a turning point in the course of something. Something that can be better or it could be worse, especially in the sequence, as I mentioned before. And again, danger or in the course of a disease. I think we pretty much aware this 2020 have been and how we are in this crisis. And I will touch on some of these things, what COVID has actually brought compared to pre-COVID situation and where we are in terms of our position, the way how we live, the way how we function. It's completely different to what we used to do pre-COVID. And that's the key base on what we're going to do. And I'm sure that will help us to complete our e-honor. The first question that I put across or requirement is that the identify and list the nature of crisis and human needs in at least 2 of the following passages. So what I've done is I have taken 2 passages to go through it with you, and then I'm going to pass it on the other 2 passages for you to carry out as a requirement. I think that's the fair thing to start with. So the first one is about found in Luke chapter 8 verses 40 to 56. It begins very well with Jairus's daughter, who's not well. Jairus is one of a synagogue leader. He comes and pleads Jesus to come and visit and to see his daughter, who was 12-year-old. While he's going through this, there's another lady who have a difficulty or who have a bleeding and find herself in a very difficult situation or a crisis situation. And she has come to Jesus and asks for help. So there's two things you find in this particular passage. And you hear the cries from both these individuals. One is from Jairus himself. The other one is this lady. And Jesus kindly responds to this quite well in these verses. And if you see these two elements of it, two stories or two recordings in the Bible, both of them talk about the physical healing and the worry from these two individuals. And both the daughter and the woman had infirmities that nobody could cure. So that is the position they were under. So they were under a position where there's no remedy, there's no alternative. So they felt that the only alternative here is Jesus. So they come to Jesus and asking for his help. So, and then Jesus, as we all know the story quite well, and he says he also provided them the comfort, if you read in verse 48, and to the man with the sick daughter with his Jairus, his daughter in verse 50, he comforts, and then he removes their doubt from their lives. So Jesus was addressing the very life and breath of the little girl, as well as the need for the family and love in our parents. Of course, Jesus also addressed people's spiritual needs and faith, higher level needs on a scale of needs. And we'll go through that bit more detail about as we go through the hierarchy of needs. So I'm sure you understand how to identify the need, how to identify the crisis in a passage, and how to find the need, and what is the solution here. So that's the first passage. If you have any question, drop them on the chat. I'm sure Elder Berg and Sister Natalie will help us go through them. The second passage is also an interesting element. I think we all pretty much know the story so well. It's about this prodigal son, found in Luke chapter 15, 11 to 32. And it's an interesting one. And many sermons actually have been preached dissecting this particular story. But for the purpose of this honor, the story illustrates the family acceptance and the need to be loved. So the father also addressed his son's physical needs for food and shelter. But the house and the dear father go in crisis of losing his son, but at the same time addressing what son wants. The scripture very well illustrates the son spent all that he had eating the rock bottom. Until then, he enjoyed. So his crisis was on, and he found a solution. That only solution is that to return back to his father. So he returns, and so very much need of humility and mercy. After all that, surrendered to the father, who overwhelmingly accepting as a solution to himself. So you see, father was in crisis. The son also found himself in crisis. So they both meet together. So father wanted to resolve his crisis by accepting the son to himself, to his home. And son has nowhere to go. And his solution was to return back to the father. Whatever it can be, I want to be with the father. Even I could be a servant. So you see that both of them coming together. But what happens is a turning point here. The son who lived in the house kind of lost to provide the empathy for the brother. So you see that quite well, that story illustrates the situation, the crisis situation of all three individuals. And also you find the need, and also you find the solution, how they worked through. That's on the scriptures as we study. And I'm going to give you, as I said before, a task for yourself. And these are the two Bible verses that I've displayed on the screen. And again, it's there in the worksheet. If you're able to read this passage quite well, you will find in Matthew about four stories within that particular passage. And we will see that Jesus addressed those people's needs very clearly. And I want you to highlight that crisis elements of these four stories within that chapter, within that Bible verses, and also list down the needs, what are those needs are. And in the second verse, or the passage I quoted here is John chapter 8, verse 1 to 11. This is the story about the scribe and a Pharisee, where they brought to Jesus a woman caught in adultery. Now, here Jesus was very creative here, and he deflected the attention so well. And I want you to read that passage again thoroughly or step by step in process so that you understand the crisis part of it. And then again, want to see how Jesus kind of works through and finds the solution and works through the need for the lady as well as for the individuals who were around. So that's about the first requirement that if you're able to do as part of your honor. Okay. So moving on to the real nature of our current situation, where you see the 10 most common problems actually the teens face in 2020. And the list is displayed, but I will go through with you a couple or three, 2 or 3 situations where I will be able to go through the current scenarios for our teens that they're facing. And that should able to put a stepping stone for you to do the second requirement. But before you go to second requirement as well, I have this video from General Conference, which will also guide us through and understand what the church expects each one of us to do as part of recovering from the current situation or current crisis situation. So the teenagers are same as the humans, but what happens, same as the adults, but what happens, that they change over from the teenage to the adulthood, and they find themselves difficult to be accepting, or they're not ready sometimes to accept the challenges that the adults face. So the first one I want to go through is the stress. So the pressures that the teens face from school and from parents and from the peers, it can create ongoing patterns of stress. They're being stuck at home, especially with COVID, where you're not allowed to go freely for the first wave. Second wave, where the schools are open, you're allowed to go, but again, sometimes you are restricted to be the same way when you compare yourself to pre-COVID. So the role of an environmental factor such as our diet, people start the processed fast foods and possibility of increased exposure to toxins. Our mental health treatment highlights our hectic lifestyles, or environmental toxins and other challenges may increase the stress and the factors that contribute to depression. It's quite interesting to see some of the statistics that the UK government has published, and the researchers have published, and the national statistics have published. So it shows that it is so imperative for us being the Pathfinder or a church or a well-wisher to address a situation like this, or crisis situation, what our teenagers are facing. So help them to establish a healthy boundary, or teach them how to prioritize and to simplify the life. And I'm just going to go through how we do that, and create a safe atmosphere at home. So sometimes as parents or Pathfinders, when you see the parents sometimes struggle, and we identify some of these things and help and find a solution to the crisis environment within the house. Very quickly going on to the second aspect of it, which is the self-harm and suicide, which is quite high, and just was shocked to see the number the national statistics have published. So today the youth face with more temptation than ever of dreamed possible. Addiction is one thing, addiction to social media, addiction to substance intake such as drugs and alcohol, and the many addictions that have caused them to or tempt them to be taking the self-harm. So in 2020, as parents, we have to open our eyes, or as a responsible Pathfinders, as we find ourselves our home, and also in our church, and also wherever we engage in, to make sure that we understand the environment well, and some of the things that we notice, some of the changes that's happening, will able to identify, understand the crisis that surrounding us. There's something called suicide.org, and there's a teen and adults and suicides have produced this data saying that every 100 minutes, that is about 1 hour 40 minutes, a teen takes their own life. That's quite shocking when I looked at this this particular data. And again, the second one says the suicide is the third leading cause of death for young people aged between 15 and 24. That's quite high, isn't it? but for the age, the age where they can go out and to do their best, they're the best of their ability, is kind of restricted due to the situation that we currently face. There are many elements to it, but let me go into the next one, which is the trust. So teens today struggle with trust issues because they don't trust each other so well. The social media is one of the major causes, because we quite easily accept friends and take the friends off because they don't have that deep relationship. So the trust becomes a question mark in many people's life. So we are in a position where we are there to provide that kind of a help to our teenagers. It could be pathfinders, or in a position where pathfinders could be help to the others. So sometimes we may point them to the right counselors or a coach or a respectable friend. So the need for trustworthy mentors to guide them through their problems in 2020. So some of these things that were highlighted to you is real, and it's happening, and it is changing in this community. And we become so responsible to address some of these things as a church, as pathfinders, or a team of well-wishers, where we're able to make some difference in the community, and to help out our teenagers, what they face. I'm going to show you a little video, which is published by the General Conference, and it's quite fast to see what actually they have to say. And it is something that they ask or appeal to us, so that we take actions on.
Every year, about 800,000 people globally die to suicide. That is about 1 suicide per 40 seconds. For every suicide, there may be 20 who attempt suicide. For every suicide, there's more than 1,000 who suffer from a mental illness, a total of 1 billion. Most commonly anxiety and depression. Suicide numbers are not even the tip of the vast iceberg of human suffering.
Being human in this broken world is tough. Suffering is normal in this world. But because of COVID-19, things are not normal anymore. Things are worse.
Around the world, we are seeing dramatic increases in the levels of distress and mental illness due to people becoming ill with COVID-19, but also because of the disruptions to daily life, stress, and isolation. A recent CDC report from the US indicated a tripling of anxiety disorders in the general population and a 4-fold increase of depressive disorders.
Among all vulnerable groups, young people seem to be struggling most. In the age group 18 to 24, 75% reported struggling with mental health or substance abuse, and 35% reported seriously having considered suicide in the last 30 days. That is a lot of suffering. This is serious.
How many are going to die to suicide in your territory in the months ahead? How many will be on the verge of giving up? How many will suffer because of fear, despair, loneliness, and helplessness?
The United Nations says the mental health and well-being of whole societies have been severely impacted by this crisis and are a priority to be addressed urgently. Psychological distress in populations is widespread. Many people are distressed due to the immediate health impacts of the virus and the consequences of physical isolation. Mental health will remain a core concern even as countries emerge from the pandemic.
We need to act, and we need to act now. This must be a matter of utmost urgency for every leader, every pastor, every educator, every parent, every friend. We are in the midst of a mental health pandemic. We have the opportunity now to minister to the present needs of this world. If you want to reach people with present and eternal truths, we must also care for and minister to their present needs. That's what Jesus did. Let us do it too now, together.
This initiative is not about what the GC will do, it's about what we all must do. Together, in the GC, health, youth, family, and education are working together on this. Our initial focus will be on reaching young people between 18 and 30, but we will later expand to other groups. And we pray, hope, and believe that what we do for one group may also benefit others.
We will share recommended resources on how to support mental health.
We will run a social media campaign on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other relevant platforms.
We will do webinars, interviews, and panel talks online.
You may want to do similar things. You may want to do other things. Do whatever you think is appropriate and according to the needs in your territory. And please share with us what you do so we can share with others.
The world is in crisis. People are in crisis, and we are in crisis. If we stand together and work together, we can make a difference. May God place on your heart and mind a burden to make the difference He is calling you to make. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your collaboration.
Okay, so we have seen, witnessed, or watched a video from General Conference addressing how important the time is at the moment, and why it is so important to learn this particular honor, or to do this honor, this crisis that we are in. So what I displayed on the screen is some of the warning signs that you will see among young people. And if you spot any of these in your surroundings, the place where you go to, and those are gives you the right attention for us to see how we could do and what we need to do to save those individuals. So we can go through that very quickly. If you find individuals who are sad and hopelessness, or who are low in self-esteem, sluggishness, substance abuse, spending more time alone, decrease in desire to do things that they usually like to do, physical ailments, problems in school, talking about death or suicide, not caring about appearance, running away from home. Some of these things you will notice it with your friends, or if you find it with anybody else. These are your alarming signs, your warning sign that we are geared up and they are in crisis and they require some help. So this is the task again, which is the second requirement for you to identify, or you could write through that worksheet, some of the human needs and crisis situations that you face, that you see in the teenagers in your community that they're facing today. So some of those things, if you list them and you're able to submit them to the instructor. So that's the second requirement. So I'm going to quickly go through the most common problems that the families face. I don't want to go through the detail of it as time is constrained, but I want to highlight a few statistical points. Around 14.5 million people, this is in UK, there are about 14.5 million people are living in poverty, including 8.1 million people working families, and then 4 million are in deep poverty, meaning they live at least 50% below the breadline. That's quite high, I felt. And again, the unemployment rate, about 500,000 people have applied for the main unemployment benefit universal credit over the past week, which was published a few months ago. So you will see that these things are rising, and we see this quite regularly. The government addresses in their furlough scheme, and many things that they put forward in order to close the black hole on poverty and unemployment. But some of the things I want to highlight here is that what you as a Pathfinder, or sometimes you may find it in the homes that we live, or somebody who may talk about is the work-life balance. I say this because it goes unnoticed sometimes, because sometimes we don't find the flexibility that's not available at workplaces. There are not flexibility available to care for our children. So that's why it is so important that we find this as a most common problem the families face in 2020. So I know somebody who were unable to balance both work and life. The person wanted to do their best for the family as well as their work, sometimes unaware of what family expects and changes at workplace and demanded places becomes a real challenge. At one point that the person was struggling on both the ends, failing to meet the job's demand, losing on their productivity, which was clearly noted or identified. The person was also emotional that they were unable to meet and provide what the family expect. The person went through a crisis phase where they were taking family issues to work and unable to fully concentrate. And the individual was taking work issues to the family. And again, you're mixing both because they were not able to focus on one because they are under crisis. As when I noted that we had a chat, me and this particular individual had a chat, we went through some of these in an open conversation. And when we identified and we released some of the pressure points, and that kind of helped for the individual to focus on something smaller and then to develop from there. So balancing work and life brings a lot of happiness, both to the family and also to the workplace. So it is important that this issue will raise more as we Pathfinders find these in our homes, or where our parents struggle to keep up, or our friends bringing lack of support from. So you will find either at your home, or if you find something like that, that raises your alarm, or you find and talk about it, then it raises alarm. Then we raise alarm and to act and provide support, or let our counselors or pastors or the referral system, which we talk about later, that's available, could be used to help these individuals. So that's on the families that face problems. I think I could go over the financial problems, and I could go over to you through about the resources that are limited in their hands to support their children for their education goals. Sometimes the families under so severe pressure and stress, they end up in divorce. And this becomes very complicated and becomes complex when you see a single parent managing the whole thing. So they are unable to manage. So their life goes under a crisis moment, and it is it becomes very challenging. So this is my third requirement, was that describe to your instructor or write it down in your worksheet some of the families that they face, the crisis situation that they face. And it'd be good to talk. How do you? It's quite difficult to imagine and then you write it up. Because of the lockdown issue, we are not able to meet face to face. I would encourage, if there's a possibility where you could speak to your counselors and ask if you're able to have this dialogue or a communication where you're able to talk about some of these things. So by talking, you're able to vent out, or you're able to understand what the others have, and they're able to exchange the views and the ideas. So I would encourage that. There are various video platforms are available free of charge. Zoom, you could use it for 40 minutes for free. There are Microsoft Teams is available. All you need is the Hotmail account or the live.net account. You are able to access to MS Teams. You have Google Meet, and you have a Cisco WebEx system. These guys give minimum hours for free. So I would encourage that as Pathfinder, you just gather together in a group setting, talk about these, and make it more interactive, exchange ideas, exchange situations, what families face. That kind of helps you to list some of these things, and we're able to also get ideas from the others. In a way that kind of helps to understand the situation. Sometimes a family will not face any issues, not aware of what's happening in the world. By talking to another Pathfinder, talking to another individual, you're able to explore what really happens in the world. It's vice versa. It could be the other way around too, yes. So I would encourage that if you're able to do this particular requirement in a group setting, and if you require any video setting workaround, I'm happy to help around. I'm sure that your counselors are more than happy to support you and set you up on Zoom, on free account, on also on the Teams. So why we need to do some of these things, why we need to have our some of these help out or reach out. I think we heard the call from the General Conference video, but sometimes our motives that we need to be clear. What is our motives? Is it valid motives that we have, or an invalid motives? So as Christians, as followers of Christ, and we believe that God is love, and our commission is to reach out, and being a kind and goodness of our heart, and a gratitude. Sometimes people who receive help and they want to help others. These are some of the valid reasons or valid motives for us to help out others. But there are some invalid motives which I recommend that the pathfinders to ignore. Sometimes people want to do it for the curiosity, sometimes for the sake of gossip, sometimes they wanted to do it to take over control on the others. I want you to avoid some of these things, but genuine. What Christ has shown to us was that with the good motives, that we reach out these individuals and help out people who are in crisis. That is your intervention, your crisis intervention, is that to understand what is the real need. As pointed out about, our motive should be valid and not invalid. As when we discuss, be clear what we are motivated, and not for personal gain, which is an important element. Okay, so how do we know that somebody is in need? I think we study these things in our textbooks or in our school on various elements. You would find this on management books. You find Maslow's hierarchy listed there, and I'm sure the other subjects also list this particular hierarchy. There's a particular one list about the 5 levels, and it's in the pyramid. And also I put the 3 categorization of these 5 pyramids. You find the topmost in the pyramid is the self-fulfillment needs, and the middle part, which is the 2nd or the 3rd level, or it's the other way around, is the 3rd and the 4th, is the psychological needs, and the last one is the basic needs. The interesting part of this particular pyramid is that without fulfilling your basic need, which is the bottom, you're kind of unable to meet the needs above. Am I making that sense? So you meet the basic need at the bottom, and then you move to the second element. So once these met, seeking to satisfy, then you move into what is called a growth need. And this is so important that we understand somebody's need. Let me give you some of the examples that I got involved into. I used to work in India, in the country office, Adra, India, in Adra, where I was based in New Delhi. Our need, I think me and my country director, we were driving to the city, and we found lots of homeless individuals sleep on a pavement. And this particular pavement, no, it's not a very comfortable place, and Delhi can be cold and have a very, very extreme climate. And when we were driving through winters, it's about 2 or 3 degrees, and it's very bitter cold. And we thought, me and my director, we were talking about, and we said, okay, let's do something to these individuals. And their basic need would be to have or to distribute blankets. So the next day, we went to a market, and we purchased blankets. And then we went to next morning, and we thought, if we distribute to any of these individuals, they're going to jump on us, because they all wanted to have more than one or whatever reason. So we distribute in the night while they're at sleep. So it was about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the early morning. So we drove in the same road, and we found all these homeless individuals are sleeping, very cold, and they were covered themselves with a sackcloth. You know, they were covered themselves to keep themselves warm. And we said, okay, without us waking them up, we're going to keep this new blanket covered quite well. We're going to leave it next to them. When they wake up next day in the morning, they're going to find this new blanket next to them. So without waking them up, we kept next to every single individuals, and we moved on. And then next day, when we went on, next night, or again early morning, we wanted to go and see all these individuals are using this nice blanket so they can keep themselves warm. And to our astonishment, we did not find these homeless individuals are using the blankets, and we were puzzled why they did not using it, and we were surprised and we puzzled. So then we thought we'll meet these individuals during the daytime. So we met one of these individuals, and we asked, why you have not used the new blanket that was distributed to you? And they said, no, we need food more than the blanket. We go with a sackcloth and we are warm enough, but we don't have food to eat. And so what they've done is they kind of given it back to a store close by to them. They kind of sold it for money, and then they got the money and they used it for their food. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So in the hierarchy, the physiological need becomes so important, and it becomes, you make themselves comfortable, give them the safety and security element of it. They tend to bounce back because the bottom pyramid is not met. That particular need is not met. So sometimes it is important that we look after the need first. If you see some of the stories that from the scriptures, when Christ was on this earth, it was very clear. When he made sure that he provided the basic need first before he passed on. Another story, I have few more to say, but I'm just conscious of time. But I'm just wanted to say about this one particular thing where people live at the self-esteem level, but they look for the physiological need. If the physiological need is not met, your confidence level, your achievement, your productivity level, which is the self-esteem, gets affected. Let me give you well-educated individuals like surgeons. The surgeons operate in an operating theater. And sometimes when they operate on a patient, sometimes a complex procedure where they need to be with the patient about 8 to 9 hours or long hours. While they're doing these procedures, they don't actually take ample amount of break. They don't get sometimes time to drink well, to hydrate themselves. Sometimes they don't even get time to eat well. So what happens, the time when you started the procedure, you are geared up, your focused mind, your energy level is quite high, and your brain cells are working very well. As the day go by with no water, no food, and no energy, so what happens is your focus level kind of goes down, isn't it? So that's why it is so important that the basic need, which you find at the bottom of the pyramid, is met so well, so that our productivity, esteem level stays quite well. So the need, understanding the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is so important. So we make sure the need is kind of met. But there are times where you are at the esteem level, where you're able to compromise your physiological needs or the other needs only for a short period of time, and that's a compromise. It cannot stay there for a very long time, and that's an important element. So that's, as I said, I could go on further with giving you a bit more examples, but one of the requirements that I want to put forward is that at least identify the 3 types of human needs. It could be anything from the pyramid, anything from the pyramid. Identify the true 3 types of human needs and give some real life examples, so you understand the nitty-gritty of a crisis, and then you're able to provide an alternative solution. If somebody asks me a question, what happened to those surgeons, how do they focus on? So sometimes what happens is that you have an assistant next to you, or you stagger your breaks so the patients can be released off from their full content, so they can have a break and they're able to resume back their surgery. So in a way, you're providing alternative for those individuals to perform well. So moving on to the next one. So how do we identify what we need to do when you see a crisis, and how do you provide the intervention and what you need to do? Because there are the 6 steps on the screen. First, we need to define the problem. We need to understand what is the problem. And if you understand what is the problem, we will be able to go on to the next step. If you don't understand the problem, we are in a different path altogether, because we may not able to achieve what we want to. So it is so important that we understand, or we understand the real problem. So not to understand the problem, we have to be an active listeners, which we'll go shortly after this slide. What we need to be an active listener. So you need to be active listeners so that we understand when somebody is speaking to you and what their problems they are facing. And then moving on to the second step, which is ensuring that the individual or a family or a group, they are under safety, so that make sure that they are safe from the environment. Sometimes you find a very vulnerable people, and who are able to self-harm themselves, you need to be careful. You need to make sure that they are clear of sharp objects next to, as when you are, make sure that their environment is safe, the individual is safe, and that you are able to intervene and listen to their problem. Sometimes because they are able to go through the problem with you, they can also harm themselves. So you got to make sure that the individual is safe, or the family is safe, or the group is safe. And then you provide the support. So support could be different things. So it could vary. Sometimes it could be a very, very basic need support, where you're able to just provide, as I talked about the examples, you just have to provide a basic support. Sometimes it could be a bit more than the basic support, where you are able to need to find out where these individuals need help. That's what we'll go through, the referrals, the professional referrals, or to discuss with your counselors, or discuss with your pastors, or use some of our church resources in order to escalate and to find out where we could able to find support for those individuals who are in the crisis. The other one is the examining the alternatives. Find alternatives to a crisis. If an individual that we talked about earlier, where I talked about the blanket distribution one, the other alternative was food for them. That's the basic need. Meet their basic need. Or our churches in UK do a fantastic job. And I know a church where I live very close by, they have the food bank, they have a soup kitchen, and they do that on a Sabbath evening. And then the Pathfinders are involved in those evenings. They come along in the evening. They prepare bread. They use the spread and make sure it is all packed well. And they go and support the church members to go and distribute it. Just come, you find alternatives and see how we would do that. And then you make plans. You make plans how you're going to recover that individual from the crisis into a better situation, or a better environment, or a better living. So you make plans. So you make plans not because you wanted to do it for your benefit. You make plans to benefit the individual who are in crisis. So it is quite important, as when we plan, we listen carefully, and we address their core issues, and we then list out those plans, and then make a provision or find resources to support them. Now, in order to do all this, you need to have a commitment from them. We do all these, and if they're not committed to your plan, then your plan is not going to work out. So the final step is a CRE, and we need to obtain that commitment from them. So it is a two-way process. So you are here as a crisis worker, where you're going to help them out. At the same time, there as your individuals who need help, they need to be with you in your plan, in your solutions. They understand, so that they have the commitment that we go along the plan and recover them from the crisis to a better living condition, or better situation, whatever they are under. So in order to do that, as I mentioned before, you need to be an active listener. So I've listed some of these things on the screen, but I could again go through that in a bit more detail. I'm just a bit conscious on time. I'm just going to go into the next video, which addresses some of these major steps that is mentioned in here. So you need to face the speaker well, maintain your eye contact, be attentive but relaxed. But keep an open mind. Don't jump into solution. Don't give them the solution before you know what the actual problems are. Listen to the words and try to picture what the individual is saying. Don't interrupt them. Don't impose your solutions on them. Wait for the individuals to pause, to ask for clarifying questions. Ask questions to only to ensure understanding for yourself, and try to feel what the individual is feeling. So you got to choose to understand their position, and give regular feedback that you're listening to them, and then pay attention to what is inside. Sometimes the non-verbal, sometimes the facial, their action can speak a lot of words. So you have to be mindful of those things. So let's see the video for us to understand a bit more.
So let's talk about listening.
That's easy.
We all think we're good listeners, but have you ever done this? Or this? or this?
Oh dear, I have.
Well, sadly, we all have.
Oh well, if everyone does it, then it can't be that big a deal.
Actually, it is. When we don't listen, we're saying, yeah, what you're saying isn't important.
Oh dear. So, what should...
Be present and focus when you're thinking. We call this active listening.
That sounds hard.
Well, the more you do it, the better you become. The greatest active listening is to stop.
Like a street.
Not that kind of stop. It stands for stop, breathe, listen, respond. So first, stop what you're doing. And you guessed it. Then you breathe. Now you're ready to listen and
What if I...
without interrupting. And we don't just listen with our ears. Listen with our whole body.
My body talks?
You betcha. Look him over here. What do you think his body is communicating?
He's bored. I not like Jim.
Well, make sure your eyes are looking straight at the person talking. Your feet are on the floor. Keep quiet. No talking or making weird sounds.
What's next?
Now you're ready to respond in a kind and patient way. Find out more about the situation, but don't try to solve everything.
But if I can't solve the problem, what can I say?
So say something to encourage them, like, tell more, or how did that make you feel? Or even, what can I do to help?
So, to be an active listener, I need to stop, breathe, listen, and respond.
A+.
Thanks!
So before we go on to this
So
particular question, I'm going to ask how many of you are good listeners? You could type that on your chat, or how many of you been told of from your friends or parents or from your teachers that you're listening to them when they're talking. Usually when parents talk to us, we give half ear to them. We listen to half instructions and say yes, yes, yes. But actually we do half of those because we didn't listen to them fully. How many of you have been good listeners? Or how many of you practice as an active listener? You could type those, or you could put those questions in that. I'm sure we'll be able to also learn from those ones as well.
I'm on Pathfinders. Okay, I'm a good listener. Somebody says they're a good listener. Okay, any more?
Oh, that's good.
Somebody says I prefer listening to talking. Okay. Anybody else? I like how somebody says I like talking. So somebody likes talking there. That's fine. I think that's probably true for most people.
Yeah, it's very, very usual. It's very usual thing that people love to talk, and people love to talk always talk, and people who are always quiet are always quiet. But in order to understand an individual fully and thoroughly, and in order to understand the situation they're under, you need to let them speak out. That's why some of the requirements that we listed in the in this particular honor is for you to interact. I don't want you to be solo at home and doing this honor and submit and gain, but I want you to go the next step, make that interaction, speak to your Pathfinder and speak to your counselors and engage that, make the dialogue happen, and share those ideas between yourself. It is that what is going to give you the next level of understanding somebody's position or somebody's situation, or somebody is in crisis or not in crisis. So your requirement should show that. And if you've achieved that, and that's the key element of this honor, it's to know who's under crisis, and you're there to provide the support because we are under positive or a valid motive. And in order to do that motive, we make that interaction with them, actively listen, make a plan with them, and then obtain commitments between each other. And you're kind of helping out them to come out from the situation they are under and making a good progress moving forward. So the next, the requirement is a very key requirement. And this particular requirement is to conduct an interview of at least a 10-minute duration. It could be anybody. It can be anybody, not necessarily somebody is under crisis. Not necessarily it has to be your Pathfinder group. It could be your schoolmate or your classmate, or it could be somebody whom you know. Just have this interview, but make sure that you have an observer, or somebody who can observe the way how you are listening to the interaction, listening to the questions that you put forward, and listening to the answers that comes out from the other person, how well you have documented it. Make sure if you have a gadget, I'm sure most of us have the smartphone. If you have a smartphone, record them and see that how much of notes you have taken in listening to them, and then see the recording that you made on the phone. See how much you actually captured in the conversation, and what are the things that you missed. Sometimes we may miss out some important element. It might come from an individual, which can actually act a very key element for your planning to recover them crisis. So it is so important that we engage ourselves fully. So if you're able to focus for 10 minutes and give a go and have this interview with anybody, as I said, so make sure that you have an observer next to you, and make sure that they give you a very good feedback. Not necessarily it has to be a positive. We are here to learn, and we are here to be a good pathfinders, so that we are able to gain this honor and to say that, yes, I have done this and I am skilled to do this one. I'm skilled to listen to, and I'm now in the process of doing that. So lots of things we could able to answer. Okay, so that's the honor, or one of the requirement towards the honor, and I would encourage that you do them, and so that to gain a good knowledge of active listening, and gain a good knowledge of somebody who are under crisis, and also work through the model that we went through in order to understand somebody's crisis element, to plan, and also to work through their commitments. Now I wanted to show you the next video is about the help that is available for individuals who are unable to give them solutions immediately. So this is a very short video which will help us to see.
In this time of uncertainty, are you feeling tired, unable to sleep, confused, stressed, anxious, feeling alone, or scared, constant arguments at home, or you just need someone to talk to? CCS, your trusted counseling service, are here to help. Call our dedicated listening line 033 013 32494. Visit our website at www.ccscounseling.org.uk and chat with us online. Our counselors and listeners speak various languages. CCS, a shoulder you can lean on.
If you watch that video and if you spotted the languages that was mentioned in there, if you find your language is missing in that one, you can actually be a support to this particular team. You could also interact and see if you're able to help them out. And this is South England Conference as put across, and this is available on their website for you to use their resources. But there are various other institutions that are available. The government has put forward many things as well. So the second link that I've spotted out is the government link, somebody who is struggling and suffering, or with their finances, and in order to balance their books with the expenses and benefits. And there's a link to go through in terms of for the counseling for them. The city councils, various city councils have a department of their own and provide counseling. And that particular link is a Derby Council, and that talks about counseling for families, people who are in the difficult situations. I'm sure there are other councils as well have them. And the next one is for schools. It's a PDF document. It gives you a complete picture of what schools have, and where you could actually tap or to escalate to if you find anything within the school premises, or somebody of your friend at school. And there are forms that are available for you to refer those individuals to if they are comfortable to do. And then the next one is the youth mental health service. And this is, if you go onto this particular website, it's an interesting one. It gives you a complete European map with a flag for every single country. And if you click on those flags, and it will tell you help in that particular country. And as we listen to the video what General Conference has published, mental health in this particular year, it's a mental health pandemic. You know, COVID is, yes, it has created it, but the byproduct of COVID is the mental health issues that you may find among the youth and the teen, and also with the families. So that's a very good a resource that's available for us to access. And you click on them, as I said, is a map, whichever country in the Europe, you'll be able to access and provide that support for those individuals who live in that crisis element or crisis situation. The last one I put on the link is a counseling organization based in the US. And again, this also provides a vast majority of the states in the US. And there are some network counselors within this area, and they're able to provide that link for you to provide support if you find individuals of that kind. And there are various other countries. All you have to do is counseling services, or even government counseling services. Majority of them, they have a phone number, and they have an email address, and they have a websites where you're able to access to and able to seek their support if you have any individual or a family or a group who are struggling with in the crisis. So that's pretty much about. There are helps available, there are forms available, and who is referring to. If you are referring an individual that are found within the church, we have our church elders, we have pastors, we have our conferences who are geared to support and provide help. As I provided, if you are in the UK, the SEC have this the counseling service and the telephone number. All of them are available on the link on the link which I display on there. And again, those will be your key areas where you could seek help for individuals who need our help. And that's about it. I've now come to my end of my presentation. I'm now here and hand over time back. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. And yes, I can see Elder Elderberg has posted the telephone number on the website on the chat as well. So those links are available for you to use it to access and to get benefit for those individuals who need us.
Okay, thank you very much, Alwin, for your presentation. Thank you for those who've put some questions in and made some answers. If you do have any questions, just quickly, just a couple of questions we can probably take. Well, no, time is gone, but that's never mind. Time is relative. We have nothing. Well, some of us have nothing else to do. Some of us do have some things to do. Yes, sister Natalie has something else to do. So do I, actually. But I want to just thank all the presenters again for today. Thank you for the time you've taken to put these together. Thank you for those who've joined us. Thank you for listening. Sister Natalie, do you want to give us a chance so we can give a clap to Elder Alwin so that he can.
There we go. We should be able to unmute now. You should be able to unmute yourselves, folks, and then give Brother Alwin a round of applause for this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elder. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So the Pathfinders aren't as, come on, Pathfinders, the adventurers put you to shame. They were there clapping and saying hello and everything. I don't believe these mind you, they're shy teenagers, aren't they? So okay, thank you very much anyway, everyone. And as usual, everything will be on the site, ready for you to download and everything, to complete your honors. Okay. Thank you very much, Sister Natalie.
We'll be there. And yeah, we thank you all for coming, and back again same time, same place next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, North England Conference, for hosting this evening and for presenting as well.
You're welcome, sister. I can say it's any time for me. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but yes, if I'm available, I will always help out. No problem at all.
Thank you, Howard. Wonderful. Well, I wish everybody a wonderful new week, and we'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.